This will be fun.
I love this guy. He actually took the time when he first met me to figure out how to say my last name, Clanachan, with like a hard K. I get Clanachan all the time. KJ always got it right from day one.
Clanachan.
Him and Johnson, they both got it right.
Well, there you go. I'm going to get that right for sure. I'm delighted to be joined by you today. We're going to go through a ton of stuff, and we'll open up for questions afterwards. But for about 20 minutes or so, David and I are just going to go through what has been a tremendous year. You know, no doubt about it. We were just talking before we came up here. We are in December, the final month of 2021. We got a final to play tomorrow, and there was times this year where none of us thought any of this was going to happen. Let's be honest. At the start of 2021, we had no idea where we were going to be, where the games would be played, whether people would be in the stands, whether the players would be on the pitch. And so it's it's not relief. It's just fantastic. That's the emotion I get when we come through this. But David, let's start there and let's get your opening thoughts, if you don't mind, on what's been a tremendous 2021 season.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. When the owners came to me and said, "Hey, why don't you come and do this and come to the other side of the fence and manage the league and start off, we're going to start playing in 2019." I had this all drawn up. I knew we were going to have 2 years of a pandemic after our first year, and this is the way it was going to go. But at the end of the day, this has been a great year. I'll be honest with you. I have to tell you that if you feel like a parent when you actually get to see something start up from scratch, right? And we all know, those of us that are parents, that first step your child takes, that first word out of their mouth, that first time they can run, the first time they can laugh, that's how you think about things. That's what this league has done. Our first year, I think, was a great year. I wasn't allowed to say that at the end of 2019, but it was a great year. And then the pandemic hit, and yet here's a league 1 year in, infantile, not in the sense of the way we were. We were good, but to be hit with that kind of tsunami, and for 2 years, not 1 year, and to do very well and get better each year, I thought that was fantastic. And again, the league office, led by Glenn and Mickey and Roy and all the great people there, they rose to the occasion. The clubs, starting with the ownership, the technical staff, and the coaches and the players, they all rose as well. Again, not only in 2020, but in 2021. And I think they did a great job. I literally have the ability to sit back and look at games in 2019 and 2020 in the Island games, because I think we're still seeing them on TV at times these days. But the reality is you're seeing some of that, and then the games this year, and the level of competition is outstanding. I mean, I've had people say to me, they can't believe how fast the game is, how skillful it is. It's at a pace that's you wouldn't expect to see in a league that's only been around for 1 full year and a couple of part years. Although I would say we got a full year in this year.
Yeah, I think it's a really good way to carry on going when you talk about the competitiveness on the pitch, right? The numbers speak for themselves. Obviously, tremendous amount of games. We've had 114 games, 292 goals. So many young players are going to get into that as well in terms of the Canadian influence on it. But we've already seen this season the quality of go way above and beyond, right? No doubt about it.
And KJ, you're right. Like when you talk about the number of goals, 114 games, and almost 3 goals a game. That's pretty good. That's really good, actually. And that's always been the knock on our sport, football in North America, right? It's always been, there's not enough goals in the game. Our goals are extremely exciting, and these are not like tap-ins. Like there's some phenomenal goals that have been scored in our league throughout the year. Great, it's exactly the type of excitement you want.
And it has helped, immeasurably across the region, right? Here we are in Hamilton, Ontario, with Forge playing tomorrow. We're going to get into Pacific and give them some love a little bit later. But Pacific will allow me to talk about this too, because they know what Hamilton, the team in Hamilton Forge have accomplished in CONCACAF is what they want to do and has driven this league forward. You think about this team going down into the regions that they've been to. They've been to Panama, they've been to El Salvador, you've been to Costa Rica, Honduras this week, and getting rounds of applause from these teams, these ultras in these stadiums, and coming away with results, David, for this league is I would imagine even exceeded your expectations in year 3.
You know what? I'll say this, and I say this to everybody that asks me or doesn't ask me. I tell them anyways. The maturation of what I've seen of Forge and the way they play football is night and day versus 2019. Seeing them in the preseason before 2019, they were fantastic, right? Like, they're very passionate and everything else. But you can just see, and it's interesting because people like Josh Simpson and Rob Friend, they said to me, when we start sending players abroad to play against other teams, the level of maturity is going to go through the roof, right? Because the game is just at such a higher level. And so the little things don't bother people. If you watch the Forge players today, I can tell you right now, the old gatherings of players, everybody runs to where the foul was, or, blah, 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 and the yelling and all that. You don't see nearly as much of that as what you used to. Because again, they've been battle tested, really. And they've been tested in battles that are even higher. I think that rubs off on our league too. It's good for the league. It's also bringing players to us because now people are they're coming out and people are saying, wow, these guys come from Canada. Well, it doesn't hurt when the men's and women's teams are doing so well and people see that, but it's just one more thing on top of it. When they left Honduras the other night after drawing 0-0 in probably one of the toughest places in the world to play, their fans down there, who literally you would have thought would have lit them on fire if they could have got near them, clapped for them on the way out, recognizing how good they were and how they played. That to me is not just about Forge. That's a recognition of our country and all of the teams and clubs in our league and who we are as people, right? That to me, that's called ambassadorship. And so that's what CONCACAF gives us as well, KJ.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, I think 10 or 11 days, they're going to be in the Champions League draw. They're going to be in the last 16 with the best teams in Major League Soccer and the best teams in Liga MX. How important is that for us as a league to get presence in that competition?
To me, it's amazing because it validates everything that we've all worked for. It validates everything that you've all written and reported on, right? It validates everything that we do every single day. It takes us to another level in the global vision, right? Remember in 2019, I think I told you guys at the end of that year that people were actually calling me from Europe and said, hey, you kind of caught us by surprise. We weren't expecting this level. They're not saying that anymore. They're not saying, oh, we weren't expecting this. Now there is an expectation. And it starts at the national teams, but it also comes down to what's your league, right? What's your top tier league and how do they perform? We're doing that. Let's not just talk about Forge. Let's talk about Pacific FC, who plays out of Langford, right? Most people say, where's Langford? Sometimes other people call it Langley, but it's Langford. The bottom line is they beat an MLS team, right? They beat an MLS team this year. Quite frankly, I was at the game. Probably a lot of you were at the game or watched the game against TFC at BMO Field in the semifinals, right, of the Canadian Championship. Between us, and this is not a proud father talking about one of his children. This is somebody that's arm's length looking at going, they should have won that game. And they didn't play against 9 Canadians. They played against TFC's #1 team. And they were unlucky not to win. Truthfully. That's what gives you street cred. And that's what our teams are doing.
Within our league, I know when we do, with our broadcast partners from OneSoccer, and great to see Ollie and Adam and others here, Gareth here, we talk a lot on OneSoccer about how much we love the race for the playoffs this year. Obviously, it was expanded to get to 4 teams, right down to the wire, David. 75% of your teams were right in it till the very end. Talk us a little bit about that. Why was that important to expand it to 4? And I think that probably helped a little bit in terms of rising the quality of competitive football because almost every game mattered this season.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I mean, it was about every game had to matter, and we wanted as many teams in it as possible. You want that. We also we had made a commitment after 2019 that we would listen to our fans and our supporters, and they told us what they were looking for. And it would have been easy for us just to replicate what we did in 2019 in 2021. But you know what? Our team and the owners and all the clubs agreed we need to be different and make some changes and keep clubs in it. And they were in it right to the end. Like, we don't have promotion relegation. One day maybe, right? But we don't have it yet. So how do you do that? What I love, the most important thing for me is 4 teams get in. The 2 youngest teams in the league, by far, are part of the top 4. That's amazing. So you got the old, I'll call it the old guns and the young guns, let's call it that. And it's not about age, but it's about, those two clubs had been there before, two hadn't, right? And all of a sudden now, how exciting was that? So very interesting.
You talk about youth. Let's move on to that then. The numbers here speak for themselves. Total minutes played, 33,398 minutes across 48 players. We're talking about the under 21 players now, the initiative that we've got here. An incredible amount of Canadians in that level, under 21, making a significant difference as well. By the way, we're going to see a lot of them tomorrow on the pitch here. York United with the leaders with that. Max Ferrari, Isaiah Johnston, Cedric Toussaint, Lowell Wright, and others. I would imagine that continues to exceed your expectations when you see numbers as high as that, and York just smashing through that within 4 or 5 days.
Yeah. Listen, at the end of the day, and this is, Canadians should hold us accountable for this. Playing Canadian players and playing young Canadian players are two of the foundational building blocks of this league. We said that's what we were going to do, right? And it takes the ownership group and the coaches and the technical people in the clubs to actually fulfill that, right? But it also means that we as a league office have to hold them accountable to that. So that's important to us. We should be held accountable for that. It's important that we develop that. Now, we're not going to see a lot of young Canadians coming out of the CPL to start with going right into the men's national team. That's not going to happen overnight. But it will happen. You can hold me accountable for that because it's there. I can see it now. But it also, when I hear the passion around the boardroom table from the owners, from people like Bob Young, from Rob Friend, Josh Simpson, Ian Allison out at Cavalry, right? They talk about young players all the time, and that's what they need to do, right? Because it's important for us. It's why we are here. And for me, I think it's almost 30% of the players in the league are under 21. That's good. That's a good balance. We should have that. And think about it. All these young people, how many of them would not have gone on to play anymore? They'd have just stopped. That's too bad. It's not good. We can't have that.
And talking about opportunities in the same way, you and I have had long discussions away from microphone sometimes about what the European model is about, right? Giving pathway for young players and pulling that all the way through. And, League One is certainly going to be a massive provider of that as well. But what about youth sports as well? Because we had a handful of players. We got Metusela playing for Forge tomorrow as an example, who played significant minutes in this league. And youth sports, again, gives them an opportunity to come through and play. And it's great to see players like that making a difference on the pitch.
And I will tell you, like, if you polled the coaches in the league, they would probably tell you they were a little unsure of the youth sports thing when we first brought it up. But again, we broke through and did something that no other sport had done. Like, we actually brokered a deal, if you want to call it a deal, if you want to call it, but we actually carved our way through that and said, let's do this. Let's allow these young players to play for money and not have their eligibility go. It had never been done. No one's been able to put their hand up and tell me, oh, I know it was done over here. We did, right? And now other types of sports, basketball is one of them. They've done the same thing. So yes, that youth sports is massive. That for me it's a big deal. League One is the other piece. When we had the opportunity, and League One had kind of outgrown its parents at the time when we started this league, we had the opportunity to go into League One and have an influence there and take it under our wing. It took us a nanosecond to say yes to that. Why? Because the academy system in this part of the world is very, very difficult. You don't have to go any further than the MLS teams, both south of the border and here and within our own borders, to understand. I've had private conversations with owners. KJ and I have talked about it. It's very, very difficult. It becomes a bit of a hole in the bottom of the bucket, right? It's very, very difficult. And the problem that you run into is the sports level is so high from an economic perspective, it's hard to let younger people out there playing first team minutes. And we all know this. If you want to be better, you need first time minutes, right? Why are you seeing some of these European clubs right now that they're starting to play 17-year-olds? More and more, they're running them out on the field, right? Because they'll only know if they can rise to the occasion, if they can compete at a higher level against people that are better than them, right? They need to know how to deal with the Roy Kents of the world, so to speak, right? They have to know that, right? And it's not that simple. Elite athletes are always trained that way. My daughter, Hannah, is 21 now. She was a elite gymnast when she retired when she was 12. That level of athlete, they push them to the point where they're constantly failing until they can master something. And then they raise the bar, raise the bar, raise the bar. We have to do the same thing here in this game. We're playing catch up against leagues around the world that have been over 100 years old. They're over 100 years old. The good news is we'll move faster because just the world will work that way for us because we get all the learning from everyone else.
Yeah, talking about learning, let's move away from the pitch for a little bit. We'll come back just to wrap it up before we get your questions on the outcome. Talk about tomorrow's final a little bit as well. Let's talk about some things away from the pitch. We're going to get into the league as well and their commitments making a change in shortly because it's been a big year for that as well. But we have to start with the players and the union that's been discussed this week. And I know there's been some developments there. So what can you fill us in with what's going on so far in terms of how fluid these conversations are?
So out of respect for the conversations that I've had.
That was a Freudian split.
Yeah.
By the way, it wasn't still over.
Make me hit the off switch on the mic right as I was about to answer that question. So listen, out of respect for the conversations that are happening, we are having conversations. And we've had conversations. We're going to have further conversations when the season's over. We've agreed to that. We're going to sit down. We're going to talk about it. I will say to you, though, think this through. And I'm not lobbying or anything because I'm telling you right now, no issues whatsoever. We're going to do this. The reality, though, is in 2019, we started the league. And then, as I said, I joked when I said I scripted this pandemic for 2 years. You got 2 years. You go into this. You are literally fighting to breathe, right? You can't let distraction, not that it's a distraction, but you can't let anything else inside of your brain and what you can handle at that point in time. Glenn Johnson literally looks like he hasn't slept in 2 years. For me to add anything else to him on top of that, Mickey Roy, same thing. These guys look like they have gone through a world war, in my opinion, right? And so that's part of it, right? There's a time and place for everything. The time and place is here now as we finish the season. We'll get to it, right? And so no issue with that at all. Listen, the players have talked to me. They you know the best thing about the job that I have? The players actually feel that I'm approachable. They can come and talk to me anytime they want. Kwame, I saw him at the Pacific FC and Toronto TFC game. He came up and talked to me and said, "Hey, how are you doing, Kamesh?" Like they know they feel comfortable. I like that. I want to be approachable. I want to be approachable to the players, to the coaches, the technical staff, to the owners, to the fans and supporters that are out there. We should be. I'm just this guy who grew up selling coffee and donuts, but I do have right and wrong, and I understand that. And now is the right time.
What is also the right time has been this commitment from this league this year to make a difference off the pitch. We know that the world is changing, and in 2021, you think about what the league was at the forefront of right from the start. With every child that matters, and obviously all the way to the Legion and what happened with the poppies on the pitch, on the shirts and how much they raised, over 22,000. Just talk about that and the development of what this league is, because it's never just about producing a league. It has to stand for the things that the league is.
100%. Principles are everything in life, right? And so at the end of the day, you have to walk the talk. And, one of the things that we talk about all the time, the office and as well as the Board of Governors and even the players, they hear it all the time. Coaches hear it. This is about communities. You don't build brands from the top down. You build a brand from the bottom up. This I know, okay? This is where I earn my stripes. Build it from the brand up. I tell our partners, sponsors that too. What we do is we connect to communities. In order to connect to communities, you need to understand what's happening in communities. And the world it's got to change. We have to be better people. We all do. We have to recognize that the world's not all equal at this point in time. It isn't, and it's not right. So we have to be prepared to adapt. We can't just say, "Oh, well, it's only about this cause or it's only about that cause." It's about every cause. We should care, right? And we have to as a league. I think our league is very diverse. I can't wait until we get to a women's professional league in Canada. That's going to come. I'm telling you, it's coming. We should be the best women's team in the world. We need a league here too, right? And this is not about that. This is about the CPL. But the point is, we have to care about our communities. You can't say we're a community organization, we're built from the communities up, and then ignore what's happening. You have to recognize it. You have to stand for change and be better for it. And our players help us do that because they are so connected. They're rooted in the communities.
A couple more questions for you, and then we'll open it up to the floor. What can you tell us about the future and any updates on what's going on and also around expansion? Because obviously Vancouver has been announced. What's the update more with that? What's to come? What's going on with Saskatchewan? And is there any more key dates that people should be aware of?
Yeah, so I think first let's talk about. I'm really excited about Vancouver. Like Vancouver is a great city, and frankly, it'll be great to have another professional club there, and they'll do very well. I know that. Right now, it's a matter of where will they play. It's always the same thing, right? First, you got to get the owner out of the way. Well, not out of the way. You got to bring them in, right? And then it becomes where we play. The longest pole in the tent is always where are we going to play, because we don't have a plethora of stadiums that you can play at in this country, right? So that's the key thing. So that's the biggest issue right now, KJ, is just finalizing some negotiating that's going back and forth. Believe it or not, there's a number of communities in that lower mainland that would love to have a Canadian Premier League team. Why not? Why wouldn't you? It's great. It's the global game. Saskatoon has the same issue, but things are going really well. The municipality they're on side. They get it. They're getting the people of Saskatchewan are behind them. People of Saskatoon are behind the club. We're moving down the road. It just is when are we going to see this idea of a stadium? That's the two things there. And we've got 3 or 4 other clubs and places that we're talking to today. The issue will be when will they get across the finish line? But this is a great game because you don't necessarily have to have 1 million people in a town to support a football club. You really don't. And so there's lots of room. And you brought up League One earlier. We are now getting teams coming to League One in 2022 that are going to come in and play in League One. They've already called out that their goal is to find a way to win that and then apply and say we want to come to the CPL.
And the other thing, David, is Quebec. Is it not an unbelievable amount of talent there and just passionate for the sport? And I know you've been pretty vocal about that too.
So yeah, there's no doubt. In Montreal, we all know Tony at TSN Montreal Radio. He's a great guy, and he's a big fan of the Canadian Premier League, and he's a big fan of young Canadian players, which I love the guy for it. At the end of the day, he said this. He actually said to me, David, there's a rumor here that in Quebec that this is a conspiracy to keep the professional football out of Quebec. And it was great that he said that to me on a radio program, because I said that's not the case. I would go to Quebec tomorrow. Somebody just introduced me to the owner and tell me where we're going to play. We'd be there in a heartbeat, because we won't be complete in this country in the men's top tier football until we get a team in Quebec. I'm saying it right now. That's important to us. We've had lots of people kind of circling and talking to us, but talk's cheap. It takes money to buy whiskey. And this is not a whiskey ad, but the bottom line is that's the old saying, right? So you really got to, somebody's got to step up. We will get Quebec. We want Quebec. It's arguably the second or third biggest soccer province in the country.
Yeah, no question. Final question from me is on this match that you'll be here tomorrow to watch. It couldn't be better, no? Forge, obviously 2-time champions, trying to get a Canadian Premier League dynasty against the best attack. Whether your eyes tell you that or the stats tell you that, both of you will tell you the same result in Pacific FC, who are trying to come over here and beat the underdog and can go out there and beat this team. This is a fascinating matchup between two proud Canadian Premier League franchises.
100%. I don't think you guys could ask for a better tagline on the story, right? Like, think about it. Like, this is kind of like a little bit of a David and Goliath. It's young versus seasoned. We'll say old. It's young versus seasoned. Those who attack, very steady. They're different styles of play for sure. Coaches are very different. Like, everything about it is good. Having said that, the one commonality of the whole thing is they're fans and supporters. They're passionate. They're mad about their team. They love their teams. I've been to Pacific. Man, you go to a game out there and you'd swear there's 50,000 people in the stands. Forge, you'd swear there's 50,000 people here too. And it doesn't matter what time, what the weather looks like, whatever, they're there. So again, it's a great storyline. You can, if somebody said to me, David, this is the story we're thinking about for this year. This is how it's going to end. Would you have signed up for it? I think I would have put my hand up.
Unscripted drama at its finest, no doubt. Okay, microphone's out, and we'll get to some questions on Zoom as well. And I think we'll start.
I tried to talk as long as I could, so you cut the questions out.
And just a reminder,
apparently it didn't work.
Just a reminder, please introduce yourself and which outlet you are. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Matthew Nuggemeyer, Waking the Red. Cycling back to the PFA question, because I think it's on a lot of people's minds. Why is now the time? What do you feel has changed, maybe even the relationship with the PFA and internally in the league? And a related question then, you mentioned the personnel challenges to that in the past. What sorts of, or what ways do you anticipate addressing those personnel challenges in terms of workload, stress and whatnot?
Yeah, so when you say personnel, you're talking about at the league level?
Yeah, at the league office.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, we've got to kind of keep building forward. We were stunted for 2 years, right? That's at the league office. But why the association or players association at this point in time? Because it's the right time. After our first year, it's like, well, wait a second, you're just finding your feet. Like you're literally, I talked about children, like that first step that a child takes. It's like, you don't know whether they're going to be on their ass or they're going to run, right? You don't know. The reality is, we're now 3 years into this. We kind of got an idea where we are. We feel good about it. I think players are probably, their heads are on right. They're talking. Not only is their level of maturity on the pitch different, their level of maturity as professional athletes has grown as well. So is ours. Okay, so I have zero issue. It's not just them. It takes two, right? The two of us we both have to be like that, and we're ready for it. And I think they're ready for it too. And so, yeah, listen, there's nothing to be afraid of here. It's business. That's the way you got to do it.
Next question.
Yeah, Commissioner Adam Jenkins with OneSoccer. You'll have a chance, knocking on wood if I could, to finally have that full season you've been chasing again since 2019. What does 2022 look like in a full season with everything you've learned in this condensed package? When you think to what 22 might look like, where would you like the league to go and feel like?
Where would I like the league to go? I'd love to have one of our teams win in CONCACAF. We were this close this year, this close, right? I'd love to see one of our clubs win the Canadian Championship, and I think we're capable of that. You think about it. Forge loses. Have you seen the viral video that went around the world on the 11 penalty kicks, one after the other? Somebody was smart enough in the crowd to actually do that and then put it together on something.
That would be our social man.
That would be, was that Nick?
That was Nick and I behind the goal. Right?
So good. But the point is, like, can you imagine? Forge loses on the 11th, right? And then the team that beats them wins the Canadian Championship. That close, right? And it could have been any one of our clubs, right? So those are big ones. But I also want to see more fans and supporters in the stadiums. I want us to have more of a connection with our communities. We need to keep solving for that. But we need to really, if only we could all tell 100 friends and we could get them just by telling them, right? Like, I know we can do that, but it takes time. Like you have to win your way there. I don't like, what it's like, that's where we're at.
And you weren't really in home markets until August, right? It has to be said, right? That's something that next year is going to be dramatically different. It's going to feel like a full season because you're going to be kicking off and you're going to be stretching from April onwards.
And that's a moment, or that's a big pride moment for us at the league office to get back playing in front of our fans and supporters, because our supporters have stayed with us for the 2 years. They've stayed through the 2 years. We were adamant we could not go dark. You can't do that. You have to be there. And our supporters stood with us. They've been great throughout this whole thing. And I think we just need to keep doing all the good things, winning, and we do that. Then I think that's payback, right? Just do be better at everything we do.
Next question.
I just wanted to ask you particularly, it's a two-part question. First, is with regards to the international players coming into the league, the new rule with the 4 players minimum. Want to know how that's going to work. And second of all, is the CPL playing to markets better than the MLS soccer has to the communities?
Well, so let me start with the rules around the way we built the league, right? One of the things that the Board of Governors, when we talked about starting the league and how we were going to make the teams, we started with what are the foundations, right? One, we wanted young players. We needed that for this country. It was sadly lacking, right? And I say it all the time. It's the Rob Friends, the Josh Simpsons of the world that had to go overseas. And I've had friends that had to go and play over in Europe. And it's the loneliest feeling in the world, they'll tell you that. Now they remember all the days when it was like, oh, it's awesome and everything else. And I think if they were truthful and they bared their soul to you, I'll tell you right now, they probably cried themselves to sleep a number of nights when they first went overseas, even as exciting as what it was. Because no one wants to be that young and away that far, right? So, but we need to develop that here, because then more and more people, the funnel is wider, right? More young people can play at a competitive level, top tier competitive level, get exposure outside of the country as well, and move on. That's the whole idea. So that's why we said we're going to limit the amount of internationals that come in. That's why only 7 per team. 16 of the 23-man roster has got to be Canadians, right? Now, we also said we wanted young people as well, because the young people are the ones that were running away from the sport. Do you know that Canadian teams under the at U15 are as good as any teams in the world? It starts to drop off very quickly once they go past 15. And believe it or not, I was once 15. It was a long time ago, KJ. But at that point in time, things like jobs and school and girlfriends and this and that comes into play, right? Before you know it, there's a lot of things tugging at you. And so it's not surprising that if I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel in the game that I'm playing, I might stop and focus on other things. We had to stop that. We had to show them a light. We had to be that light. And that's why the under 21 rules, right? That's why we want that. And we're happy to bring internationals over. We're happy to bring Canadians over. I mean, look at the amount of Canadians that are under 21. It's a good thing. And as long as we keep ramping up the competition, then those players will get better and better and better. Right? I think about Mo Farsi. Mo Farsi last year. You want to talk to me about somebody that, because I got to see a lot of the games in PEI. A player that really caught my eye, Mo Farsi. Right? Great young, still a young player, but he wasn't 19, but a young player and a good player. Now the second question was, I knew I'd forget.
About international players.
Oh, so the international players.
Ethnic community.
Ethnic communities. So in our opinion here, we are very much, this country, we're a multinational community. Canada. We are. What are we called? The mosaic, not a melting pot. We actually love the fact that we have all these cultures living together in this country, and always have had, right? That's important. We have tons of fans from all walks of life that come to our stadiums. We just need more. That's all. And at the end of the day, people are very proud to be Canadian. I'll tell you that right now. Very proud to be Canadian. So no, we market to everyone. I would like to see everyone that lives in our communities at our games.
Any questions from the audience before we go on to Zoom?
Okay, we're moving to Zoom and we're going to start with Michael McCall.
Afternoon, David. It's Michael from AFTN. Just wanted to go back about the Vancouver expansion. Obviously, a lot of people out here are very excited by that. The fact that you're going to have the same owners for the Vancouver team as Pacific, does that cause concern for you just now, or do you see that as a short-term measure?
No, I don't see it as a concern at this point in time, Michael. It's a good question. There's no doubt. No, that's not going to be a concern for us. And so again, there are sports groups that own more than one team. This happens to be two in the same league, but it wouldn't be the first time it's ever happened. So no, it's not an issue. There's got to be a wall in between the two. We've had all those conversations. You don't need me to get into that. But the bottom line is no. We're very happy for it. It's going to be good. It's going to be good for the game overall. And you're right. Like Vancouver is going to benefit greatly from having a team in that market.
Thanks, Michael. We're going to move on to Quebec with Tristan D'Amour.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Thank you for your time. I was wondering, when it comes to the loans, there's been a lot of players benefiting from the CPL that have come on loan from MLS sides. I was wondering if there was talks or if there was interest from MLS teams to increase the number of loans. There's a cap, I believe, at 6 right now in the CPL. I was wondering if there were talks to increase that.
Yeah, Tristan, that's another great question. You know what? It's 5, not 6. Okay. So yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, the MLS teams are, we've had good conversations with them, not necessarily about this as only one topic. Our relationship with them, I think, is better than it's ever been. Not that we had a bad relationship, or we didn't have a relationship, right? So, but we're more connected as opposed to the MLS league in the United States. We're more connected to the 3 teams, and so we have good conversations with them, like whether it be Bill Manning. Or Axel, or even Joyce Gudo and Kevin when Kevin was there, all good. And the reality is, we're happy to have some of their players come and play in our league. There's no doubt about it. They're good players. It's good for the game. So yeah, there's probably it's a good idea. There's probably a better relationship there. We probably need to sit down and talk about it. But it's one of the projects I think that we'd all probably like to get at. We probably would as well, because I think they're looking for answers too, right? Again, it's all back to they also believe in cultivating and growing young Canadians to play the game. Of course they did, right? But of course they would. Their problem is they have big franchises, they have big organizations, they have all of that. They have big. What they don't have is big opportunities, because they can't play that many. They can't play that many Canadians because they're getting judged every single day in a big league, much bigger than we are. How old are they now, KJ? 25 years?
Yeah, it's past that. Yeah,
over 25 years now in the MLS, right? So, I think we'd be the same way. But it's good that we have good working terms with them, and that they want to do that. I think it's important that we continue to build that bridge. There's a good thing there.
Next up is Brandon.
Thank you, Mickey. Brandon from Canucks Abroad. Hi, David. Thanks for taking the question. I was just reaching back maybe to some of the previous questions on talks with the union and international rules as well. I was wondering if you could affirm that the league will be releasing a similar statement as they did in 2020 with regards to some of the salary rules, and affirming what some of those salary rules might be.
Sure. Yeah, we've talked about this before. We have no issue with giving. You all know that we have a salary cap. This is not new news. We're more than happy to talk about that. What people don't recognize though is, the way that the professional athletes work is they typically work on 1, 2, or 3 year type contracts, if you want to call it, right? Where if they play well. Here's an interesting idea. If they play well, they come back and they get a raise. That's what ends up happening. So all that exists within our system today. So it's all there. This is professional sports. It's like go all the way back to the Roman times. This is like gladiators, right? You win, you move on, you keep going, right? You don't win, you're not there, right? That's it's a different concept, right? But having said that, you think about what the players are talking about when they talk about this association. It's not about that. They're focused on well-being and health and all those. That's 100%. That's the kind of stuff we should all be focused on, because if we truly want young people to get better and play for the Canadian men's national team, can you imagine if all 11 of them came from the CPL in 2026 at one point or another? Wouldn't that be awesome? If we want that to ever happen, we have got to embrace all of those. We have to all embrace it together. Thank you. Brandon from Brandon, right? Is that what I heard? No?
Nope. Okay, I'm gonna do a last call for Zoom questions. Okay, we're done with questions.
Okay, well, I think we'll probably wrap it up there. Just give you an opportunity just to closing comments to obviously give a message to your owners and the fans across the league and what you're looking forward to for tomorrow.
Yeah, so looking forward to tomorrow. I'm excited. I've got a ton of people coming to the game that are friends of mine, and I'm really excited to see the game. I want a really good show. I want it to be a tough game, fast game, one that's full of excitement, and may the best team win. Going forward, we need to remember those words and make sure that we do that every time we step on the pitch. And whether it's players on the pitch, the coaches on the sideline, those in the media press box, those that are calling the games, those who are thinking that they are having an influence on the game, we all need to do the things that are going to make this sport better, right? If every single time we talk about this game or participate in this game, we leave it better than when we started, we will win. Full stop. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your time. And Commissioner, thanks so much for your time. Enjoy the game. Thanks, everybody.